The Starlight Drifter was a small ship by any standard. It carried 42 crew members, a modest engine, and enough supplies to last 6 months in deep space. It was not a warship. It was not even particularly fast. But on this day, floating near the 442 system, it became the most important ship in human history. Captain Danny Cole was drinking his third cup of coffee when the alarm started. He did not rush. He had learned long ago that rushing only made people panic, and panic never solved anything. He walked to the bridge with his coffee still in hand and found his crew staring at their screens with wide eyes. "Talk to me," he said calmly. Lieutenant Marsh turned from her communication station. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. "Sir, we have contacts, a lot of contacts." "How many is a lot?" 12,000, sir. 12,000 warships just dropped out of faster-than-light travel around us." Cole took a long sip of his coffee. It was still too hot, but he did not show it. "Well," he said, "that seems excessive." The flickered to life, and suddenly the crew could see what they were dealing with. The ships were massive. Each one was at least 10 times the size of the Starlight Drifter, covered in weapons and armor. They formed a perfect sphere around the small human vessel, blocking any possible escape route. Chief Engineer Pete walked onto the bridge, wiping grease from his hands. He looked at the screen and let out a low whistle. "That's a lot of metal," he said. "Whoever built those things really wanted to make a point." Before anyone could respond, the main screen changed. A face appeared, tall and angular, with gray skin, and 4 narrow eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. The alien wore elaborate armor decorated with symbols that probably meant something important. "Attention, unknown vessel," the alien said. His voice was deep and cold. "I am High Admiral of the Empire. You have entered Imperial space. Your species is hereby claimed as a subject race of the Empire. You will power down your weapons, surrender your vessel, and prepare for processing. Resistance will result in immediate destruction. You have 1 standard cycle to comply." The screen went dark. The bridge was silent. 42 humans, surrounded by 12,000 warships, had just been told their entire species now belonged to an alien empire. By all logic, they should have been terrified. Cole finished his coffee. He said, "Open a channel to that flagship." Sir looked uncertain. "What are you going to say?" "I'm going to ask a question." "Open the channel." The lit up again, showing High Admiral looking surprised that anyone would dare to call him back. "Is this a welcome party?" Cole asked. His voice was friendly, almost cheerful. "Because if it is, you brought a lot of ships for just one little greeting. We're flattered, really, but you didn't have to go to so much trouble." 4 eyes blinked in sequence. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever responded to his declaration this way. Species either fought desperately, tried to flee, or begged for mercy. They did not make jokes. "You misunderstand your situation, human," said slowly. "You are surrounded. You have no weapons capable of harming even one of my vessels. You are completely without hope." Cole nodded thoughtfully. "That does sound pretty bad when you put it that way. But here's the thing, Admiral. We just discovered faster-than-light travel about 20 years ago. We're still figuring out how to use it properly. So when you say we're now part of your empire, I have to admit, we don't really know what that means. Is there paperwork? Do we get a welcome packet, some kind of orientation?" Behind, his officers exchanged confused glances. Sub-Commander leaned close to his admiral and whispered, "Sir, are they mocking us?" "I do not know," admitted quietly. He raised his voice again. "Human, this is not a negotiation. You have 1 standard cycle to surrender. If you do not comply, you will be destroyed." "Right about that," Cole said. "How long is a standard cycle? We use hours and minutes, and I'm not sure how those translate to your system." Stared at the human captain. He had conquered over 300 star systems. He had brought empires to their knees. He had never, in his entire career, had to explain basic time measurements to a species he was about to enslave. "Approximately 16 of your hours," he said through clenched teeth. "Oh, that's plenty of time," Cole said brightly. "Thank you for clarifying, we'll be in touch." He signaled to close the channel. The bridge was quiet again. Dr. Amy Tran, the ship's medical officer, had arrived during the conversation. She stood near the door with her arms crossed, looking at where 12,000 enemy warships floated in perfect formation. "So," she said, "what's the plan?" Cole shrugged. "First, we figure out who these people are. Then we figure out what they want. Then we figure out how to give them something better than whatever they think they're going to get from conquering us." Pete scratched his head. "And if that doesn't work?" "Then at least we tried something interesting." Cole looked around at his crew. They were scared, but they were also watching him, waiting to see what he would do. He smiled. "Everybody take a breath. We have 16 hours. That's plenty of time for lunch, a nap, and at least 2 meetings. Keep monitoring their communications. Pete, I want you to look at our engines and see if there's any way we could outrun them if we needed to." "We can't outrun 12,000 ships," Pete said flatly. "Then make it 12,001 reasons for you to figure something out." Cole clapped him on the shoulder. "Who wants coffee? I'm making a fresh pot." As the captain walked off the bridge, Ensign Price turned to with a bewildered expression. "Is he always like this?" Almost smiled. "This is actually pretty calm for him. You should have seen him when the toilet system failed on Deck 3. Now that was a crisis." Looked back at the wall of alien warships surrounding them, and wondered if she had made a terrible mistake signing up for deep space exploration. But somewhere in a small part of her mind, she also felt something unexpected. If Captain Cole was not panicking, maybe there was a reason. Maybe the humans had something that 12,000 warships could not destroy. She just hoped she would live long enough to find out what it was. Aboard the flagship Dominion's Wrath, High Admiral sat in his command chamber and reviewed the recording of his conversation with the humans for the 5th time. His 4 eyes moved across the screen, studying every detail of the human captain's face. "Play it again," he ordered. Sub-Commander shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, we have watched it many times already. Perhaps we should simply proceed with standard conquest protocols." "No," held up a clawed hand. "Something is wrong here. Look at him. Look at his eyes, his posture, the way he speaks. He is not afraid." "Perhaps humans do not feel fear," suggested. "Every species feels fear. It is a survival instinct. Without it, they would not have survived long enough to develop space travel." Leaned forward. "This human knows he is going to die. He knows his entire species is about to be enslaved, and he asks me if there is paperwork." Had no answer for this. In his own career, he had overseen the conquest of 47 worlds. The reactions were always the same. Some species fought until the end. Some tried to run. Most surrendered and begged for mercy. Not one of them had ever made jokes. "Have the psychology division analyze this recording," ordered. "I want to understand these creatures before we proceed." Meanwhile, aboard the Starlight Drifter, the crew had gathered in the mess hall for what Captain Cole was calling a strategy lunch. The room was small and simple, with metal tables bolted to the floor, and a kitchen in the corner where Specialist Tony Reeves was preparing sandwiches. "Okay," Cole said, standing at the front of the room with a sandwich in one hand. "Let's review what we know. There's a big alien empire out there called They've conquered a lot of planets. They want to conquer us. Any questions so far?" Lieutenant Commander Chris raised his hand. "Yeah, why aren't we all screaming and crying right now? Because I feel like that would be a pretty normal reaction to this situation." "You can cry if you want," Cole said, "but it won't change anything. So let's focus on what we can actually do." Pulled up information on her tablet. "I've been monitoring their communications. Their fleet has ships from dozens of different species, which means they've been doing this for a long time. They have protocols for everything. How to invade, how to occupy, how to process prisoners. It's all very organized. That's actually good news, Cole said. Everyone stared at him. Think about it, he continued. If they have protocols, that means they expect certain reactions. They expect us to fight, run, or surrender. They have plans for all of those. But what they don't have is a plan for us being friendly. Dr. Amy Tran nodded slowly. You want to confuse them. I want to be human, Cole said. And humans are confusing. We laugh when we should cry. We make friends with our enemies. We share food with strangers. That's what we do. So let's do it. Pete leaned back in his chair. You want us to invite the alien conquerors to dinner? Exactly. There was a long silence. Then Chris started laughing. It was not a nervous laugh. It was a real, genuine laugh that filled the small room. I love it, he said. It's completely insane, but I love it. Cole smiled and opened a channel to the flagship. This time, it took several minutes for anyone to answer. When his face finally appeared, he looked irritated. You still have 14 hours to surrender, human, he said. Why are you contacting me? I wanted to make a counteroffer, Cole said. There are no counteroffers. You surrender or you die. Those are your only options. What about dinner? His expression froze. What? Dinner? You know, a meal. We sit down, we eat food, we talk. Where I come from, that's how civilized beings handle disagreements. Before we discuss surrender or death or any of that unpleasant stuff, why don't you send some of your people over to our ship? We'll feed them, we'll answer their questions, and maybe we can find a solution that works for everyone. Was silent for a long moment. Behind him looked like he was about to have a medical emergency. You are inviting us to your ship, said slowly, for dinner. That's right. Nothing fancy, we're just a little exploration vessel. But our cook makes a really good chicken pasta, and I think we still have some wine left from our last supply run. This is a trap, said loudly. It must be a trap. Cole shrugged. You have 12,000 warships and we have 0 weapons. What kind of trap could we possibly set? We just want to talk. If your people don't like the food, they can leave whenever they want. No harm done. Studied the human's face. Every instinct told him this was wrong, that no conquered species behaved this way. But he had not risen to high admiral by ignoring unusual situations. He had done it by understanding them. I will send a delegation, he said finally. If this is a trick, they will destroy your ship from the inside. Fair enough, Cole said cheerfully. We'll see them in 2 hours. Does anyone have food allergies we should know about? The channel closed. On the bridge grabbed his arm. Sir, you cannot be serious. We do not dine with conquered species. It is against all protocols. The protocols were written for normal species, said quietly. These humans are not normal. I want to know why. He turned to face his second-in-command. Prepare a delegation. Include yourself. I want a full report on everything you observe. His face went pale gray. You want me to eat their food? I want you to understand them. If we are going to rule this species, we must know how they think. Sat back in his command chair. Besides, if 42 humans can somehow harm a delegation protected by 12,000 warships, then perhaps the Empire deserves to learn some humility. He dismissed with a wave and returned to watching the recording of his conversation with Captain Cole. Somewhere in that human's calm smile was a secret that intended to uncover. He just did not know that the secret was simpler than he could ever imagine. The humans were not pretending to be unafraid. They had simply decided that being afraid was not going to help, so they chose to be something else instead. They chose to be kind. And kindness, as would soon discover, was the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. The shuttle docked with the Starlight Drifter exactly 2 hours after the invitation was accepted. Sub-Commander led a delegation of 6 officers and 4 armed guards onto the human ship, expecting to find a grim vessel preparing for death. Instead, he found streamers. "Welcome aboard," said a large human with a warm smile. Security Officer Ben Harper stood at the airlock door, his hands clasped in front of him. "I'm Ben. If you'd like, I can hold onto your weapons during dinner, just for comfort. Easier to eat without all that heavy gear." Stared at him. "We will keep our weapons." "Totally fine," Ben said, still smiling. "Right this way. The mess hall is just down this corridor. Tony's been cooking all morning. I hope you brought your appetites." The delegation walked through the narrow corridors of the human ship. Everything was small and cramped compared to their own vessels. The walls were thin, the ceilings were low, and there were strange pictures and decorations everywhere. One wall displayed photographs of planets. Another had drawings that looked like they were made by children. "What are those?" asked, pointing at the drawings. "Those are from the crew's families back home," Ben explained. "Kids send drawings to their parents all the time. It helps with the homesickness." Did not understand. Soldiers were not permitted personal decorations. Attachment to family was considered a weakness that could interfere with duty. Yet these humans displayed their attachments openly, proudly even. They entered the mess hall and stopped in his tracks. The room had been transformed. Tables were pushed together to form one long dining surface covered with a white cloth. Candles flickered in the center, and plates had been set at every seat. The smell of cooked food filled the air, rich and unfamiliar. Captain Cole stood at the head of the table. "Welcome, welcome. Please sit anywhere you like. Make yourselves comfortable." The guards looked at for instructions. He had none to give. Nothing in his training had prepared him for this situation. They sat down. Tony Reeves emerged from the kitchen carrying plates. He was a short man with a round face and an apron covered in stains. "Okay, first course," he announced. "This is a classic Caesar salad with homemade dressing. I know you folks might not have eaten human food before, so I kept it simple. Greens, bread, cheese. Nothing too crazy." He placed plates in front of each. They stared at the food with suspicion. "It's not poisoned," Dr. Amy Tran said gently. She was sitting across from one of the guards, a younger soldier who kept glancing around nervously. "We wouldn't invite you to dinner just to poison you. That would be rude." "All of this is rude," said stiffly. "We are your conquerors. You should be kneeling before us, not feeding us." Marsh picked up her fork and took a bite of salad. "Where we come from, you feed people before you talk business. It's just how things are done. Besides, nobody thinks clearly on an empty stomach." Slowly, hesitantly, they began to eat. The food was strange to them, but not unpleasant. The younger guard actually seemed to enjoy the bread, taking a second piece without asking. Tony returned with the main course. "Chicken pasta with garlic cream sauce," he said proudly. "The chicken is synthetic, obviously. We don't have room for real animals on this ship, but I promise you can't tell the difference." As the meal continued, something strange began to happen. The tension in the room started to fade. The humans kept talking, asking questions about culture, sharing stories about their own lives. They were not afraid. They were not begging. They were just being friendly. Chris turned to one of the officers. "So what do you guys do for fun? You know, when you're not conquering galaxies." The officer looked confused. "Fun? Yeah, you know, games, sports, hobbies. What do you do to relax?" "We train," the officer said. "We prepare for the next conquest." "That's it, no card games, no music, no sitting around doing nothing." The officer had no response. The concept of leisure time was foreign to the military. Every moment was dedicated to the glory of the Empire. Dr. Amy noticed that the young guard was shifting uncomfortably in his seat. His gray skin had a slightly green tinge, and his breathing seemed labored. "Are you feeling okay?" she asked. The guard stiffened. "I am fine." "You don't look fine, no offense, but I'm a doctor. I can tell when someone is unwell." Amy leaned forward. "How long have you had that breathing problem?" His eyes narrowed. "You will not question our soldiers." I'm not questioning anyone, I'm offering to help. Amy stood up and walked around the table. May I? The guard looked at who was too confused to object. Amy placed her hand on the guard's chest and felt his breathing. She checked his pulse, looked at his eyes, asked him a few simple questions. It's a respiratory condition, she said after a moment. Probably caused by prolonged exposure to recycled air, very common in space travelers. I have something that might help. She disappeared into the corridor and returned with a small device. This is a nebulizer. It delivers medicine directly to the lungs. I'm going to adjust the mixture for your biology, but the basic treatment should work the same way. She worked quickly, calibrating the device based on her observations. Within minutes, she had the guard breathing in a fine mist of medication. The effect was almost immediate. The green tinge faded from his skin, and his breathing became easier. That is remarkable, the guard said quietly. Our doctors said nothing could be done. Different perspectives, Amy said with a shrug. Sometimes a fresh set of eyes makes all the difference. Watch this exchange in silence. He had seen humans for less than an hour, and already they had done something the medical corps had failed to do for years. They had healed one of his soldiers, not as a trick or a bargaining chip, but simply because it was the right thing to do. Why? He asked finally. Why are you helping us? We are here to enslave your species. Captain Cole smiled. Because helping people is what we do, it's who we are. You can conquer our planets and take our resources, but you can't change what we are inside. And what we are is this. We feed people. We heal people. We treat everyone like they matter, even if they're pointing a gun at our heads. Had no response. He finished his meal in silence, then returned to his shuttle with his delegation. As they flew back to the flagship, the young guard touched his chest and breathed deeply for the first time in years. Sir, he said quietly, I do not understand those creatures. Neither do I, admitted. And that terrifies me more than any weapon ever could. High Admiral had conquered 300 star systems. He had crushed rebellions, destroyed fleets, and brought entire civilizations to their knees. He was feared across the galaxy. His name was spoken in whispers by species who had never even seen him. And now he was sitting in a tiny human mess hall, eating something called apple pie. This is excellent, he admitted reluctantly. The dessert was warm and sweet, with a flaky crust that crumbled perfectly in his mouth. What is the base ingredient? Apples, Tony said proudly. They're a fruit from our home planet. Takes a lot of work to grow them in space, but I managed to keep a small tree alive in the hydroponics bay. That pie represents about 6 months of careful gardening. Looked at the half-eaten slice on his plate. You grew this food yourself, for us. For everyone, that's what food is for, bringing people together. The Admiral set down his fork. Around him, his honor guard stood at attention, but even they seemed less tense than when they had arrived. The atmosphere on this small human ship was strange. It was warm, welcoming, nothing like the cold efficiency of vessels. Captain Cole sat across from, drinking coffee. He had given the Admiral a full tour of the ship earlier, showing him everything from the engine room to the recreation area. Pete had explained their faster-than-light technology with obvious pride, had demonstrated their communication systems. Dr. Amy had shown him the medical bay where she had developed the treatment now being used across his fleet. None of them had shown any fear. They had treated him like a guest, not a conqueror. I have a question, said finally. Go ahead. My fleet surrounds your ship. You have no weapons, no allies, no hope of survival. I have the power to destroy you with a single command. Why are you not afraid? Cole thought about this for a moment. You want the honest answer. I want the truth. Okay, Cole leaned forward. The truth is we probably should be afraid. You're right about everything you just said. We're outnumbered and outmatched in every possible way. If you decide to kill us, there's nothing we can do to stop you. Then why do you act as though none of this matters? Because fear doesn't change anything. Cole's voice was calm, almost gentle. If we spend our last hours crying and begging, we're still going to die. But if we spend them making friends, sharing food, playing cards, then at least we lived like humans until the end. At least we didn't let you take that away from us. Was silent. In 3 centuries, no conquered species had ever spoken to him this way. They had fought, they had fled, they had begged, but none of them had ever looked him in the eye and said that their way of life mattered more than their survival. Besides, Cole continued, I believe something that you might find strange. I believe that anyone who travels across the stars, who looks up at the universe and wants to explore it, has more in common with us than not. You built ships that fly faster than light. You organized a fleet of 12,000 vessels. You created an empire that spans hundreds of worlds. That takes intelligence, cooperation, vision. Those are the same things that got us into space. Somewhere under all that armor and protocol, you're not that different from us. Chris appeared at the table with a deck of cards. Hey, anyone up for a game? I've been wanting to teach someone new how to play poker. Looked at the cards. What is poker? It's a game of strategy and bluffing. You try to make the best hand while convincing everyone else that your cards are better or worse than they actually are. Chris sat down and began shuffling. It's fun, I promise. What happened next would become legendary throughout the fleet. High Admiral, Terror of the Galaxy, spent 2 hours learning how to play poker with a group of humans. He lost badly. He did not understand bluffing at all, because culture considered deception to be shameful. But somewhere during the 3rd hand, something unexpected happened. He laughed. It was a small sound, almost a grunt, but it was unmistakably a laugh. Chris had just made a ridiculous bet with the worst possible hand, and had fallen for it completely. You lied to me, said, but there was no anger in his voice. You made me believe you had nothing. That's the game, Admiral. Sometimes the weakest position becomes the strongest if you play it right. Looked at the human across the table, and suddenly he understood something important. These humans were not stupid. They were not naive. They knew exactly what they were doing. They had taken a hopeless situation and turned it into something else entirely. They had made him laugh, made him eat their food, made him sit at their table as an equal rather than a conqueror. They had turned the battle into a joke. Later that night, returned to his flagship and contacted the Emperor. The call was encrypted and private, meant only for the highest levels of command. Your report, Admiral, the Emperor said. His face filled the screen, ancient and cold. The humans are a unique species, Majesty. They possess technology inferior to ours, but their psychology is unlike anything we have encountered. They do not respond to threats with fear. They respond with friendship. Friendship is weakness, the Emperor said dismissively. Proceed with standard subjugation. Majesty, I believe that would be a mistake. The humans have already begun to influence my crew. Their medical officer developed a treatment for respiratory illness that is now being used throughout the fleet. Their cook has created meals that my soldiers are requesting by name. They are spreading their culture like a virus, but a virus that makes the host stronger, not weaker. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Are you suggesting that we cannot conquer 42 humans? I am suggesting that conquering them might not give us what we want. They will not submit. They will not serve. They will simply continue being themselves until they change us from the inside. That is what they do. Then destroy them. Looked at the human ship on his. He thought about Captain Cole's calm smile, about Tony's apple pie, about the young guard who could finally breathe properly, about the sound of his own laughter echoing in a tiny mess hall. As you command, Majesty, he said. But as the screen went dark, did not give the order. Instead, he sat in his command chair and stared at the stars, trying to understand what the humans had done to him. He had come to conquer them, but somehow, without firing a single shot, they had already started to conquer him. The deadline had passed. 16 hours had come and gone, and the Starlight Drifter was still floating peacefully among 12,000 warships. No shots had been fired. No surrender had been given. Nothing had happened at all. On the bridge of the Dominion's Wrath, Sub-Commander approached High Admiral with growing concern. "Sir, the Emperor has sent 3 messages demanding confirmation of the humans' destruction. What should I tell him?" Did not answer immediately. He was watching a recording that the young guard had brought back from the human ship. It showed the crew of the Starlight Drifter singing together in their mess hall, a simple song with a slow melody. The humans swayed back and forth as they sang, arms around each other's shoulders, faces bright with joy despite their impossible situation. "Sir," pressed, "tell me something. In all your years of service, have you ever heard soldiers sing?" Was confused by the question. "Singing is not part of military protocol, sir." "That is not what I asked. Have you ever heard them sing? Not as part of a ceremony or a ritual, just singing because they wanted to." "Thought about this?" "No, sir, I have not." These humans know they are going to die. They know there is no escape, no rescue, no hope, and they spend their final hours singing and eating and playing games. Turned to face his second-in-command. "What does that tell you about them?" "That they are fools." "No, it tells me that they have something we do not, something that all our conquests have never given us." Stood and walked to the. "They have joy, pure, simple joy, and nothing we do can take it from them." The door to the bridge opened, and the ship's medical officer entered. "Admiral, I have my report on the human respiratory treatment. It is effective on over 60% of our crew members suffering from air recycling illness. The human doctor has agreed to share all her research with our medical corps." "She agreed?" asked. "We did not even ask." "She offered. She said that sick people are sick people, no matter which side they are on." Closed his eyes. The humans had been his prisoners for less than 1 day, and already they had healed his soldiers, fed his officers, taught his commanders a card game, and made him laugh for the first time in 30 years. If he destroyed them now, he would be destroying something precious, something the galaxy might never see again. But the Emperor had given an order, and in the Empire, orders were absolute. He opened a channel to the Starlight Drifter. Captain Cole's face appeared on the screen, calm as always. "Good morning, Admiral," Cole said. "Or is it evening? I've lost track of time." "Captain Cole's voice was heavy. "I have been ordered to destroy your ship." "I figured that might happen. The Emperor didn't seem like the type to change his mind." "You are not surprised?" "Not really. Empires don't stay empires by letting little ships like ours go free. It sets a bad example." Cole paused. "So is this goodbye?" Looked at the human captain. This strange, impossible creature who had faced death with dinner invitations and card games. In another life, they might have been friends. In another universe, they might have explored the stars together instead of meeting as enemies. "I am going to give you something," said slowly. "Consider it a gift between civilizations." He transmitted a data packet to the human ship. Cole's eyes widened as he read the contents. "These are star charts," Cole said. "Complete navigation data for this entire sector. They show all patrol routes and military installations. If you follow the path I have marked, you will be able to leave our territory without being detected. You will reach human space in approximately 3 weeks." Grabbed his arm. "Sir, this is treason. The Emperor will have you executed." "The Emperor will never know." Looked at his second-in-command with calm certainty. "My official report will state that the humans resisted our boarding attempt and were destroyed in the resulting firefight. There will be no survivors. There will be no evidence. And this conversation never happened." Cole stared at the Admiral through the, "Why are you doing this?" "Because you taught me something, Captain. You taught me that conquest is not the only way to be strong. That sharing food with an enemy is not weakness. That laughter does not make you less of a warrior." Paused. "And because, For the first time in 300 years, I am choosing to do what is right instead of what is ordered." The bridge of the Dominion's wrath was silent. Every officer present knew what was happening. Every one of them was committing treason by remaining silent, and not one of them said a word. "Thank you, Admiral," Cole said quietly. "I hope we meet again someday." "Perhaps we will, under different circumstances." Allowed himself a small smile. "Keep your apple pie recipe safe, Captain. I may want to try it again." The channel closed. The Starlight Drifter powered up its engines and began to move, following the safe path that it provided. The fleet watched in silence as the tiny human ship slipped away into the darkness between stars. 3 weeks later, the Starlight Drifter arrived at Earth. Captain Cole delivered his report to the Space Exploration Council, providing them with complete intelligence on the Empire and the secret ally they had made within it. The news spread quickly. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and the galaxy was more dangerous than anyone had imagined. But there was hope too. If one admiral could be changed by kindness and friendship, then perhaps others could be changed as well. Perhaps the entire empire could be changed, one dinner invitation at a time. 6 months later, a package arrived at the Starlight Drifter during a routine supply stop. There was no return address, but Cole knew immediately who it was from. Inside was a military medal, the highest honor an admiral could give. There was also a note written in careful, practiced English. "I have not forgotten our game. My bluffing has improved. Next time I will win." Cole laughed and showed the note to his crew. Then he put the medal on his wall, right next to the children's drawings and the photographs of Earth. The battle that never was had ended, but the friendship it created was just beginning. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, an admiral looked up at the stars and smiled, knowing that the humans had done something no weapon could ever do. They had changed his heart. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all.